Brother,
My brother.
what's good, y'all? How you?
And I'm waiting for that thing to go all the way through. I hear you will say it's waiting. It's about to connect.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
This Instagram shit, you know what I mean? This should be new for everybody. This stupid ass fucking.
You see me?
I don't see you yet.
Oh, damn, I see you. That's crazy.
All right, well, shit, it's probably.
You know what? I'm going to log out and log back in.
Yeah, let's do that.
All right.
Oh, there you go.
Oh, you see me now?
I see you now. Now we
perfect.
Now we locked in. My brother.
How you, man? Everything good?
What's going on, man? How the quarantine you, man?
Fam is good, so I'm good. You know what I mean? As long as the family is taken care of, I'm good, man. Just I like this though, like new challenges. You know what I mean? Like every once in a while, you need this new challenge. So it's just me taking stock and being like, yo, what's all the things I could do? You know what I mean? Based off of where we at now, I'm always in that engineering mode, bro. Like let's figure out the next hustle. So it's right. You know what I mean? For me, other than the health scare and the thing of not having the contact with people, I'm also like, you know what I mean? We need a thing that's sort of kicking us into what's really real. You know what I mean? What's really valuable? Like, what's your worth? Like, it ain't no more capping out here about, you know what I mean? You got to really bring something to the table. So
right.
That's the only part that I try to look at it. So I'm not constantly looking at the negative of like, my people dying and, and people not being able to work and people being out of work and just all those things, man. That's the stuff that I try to like get out my mind because it's so depressing. But then I get on like, all right, well, let's get on this hustle.
Right. But it forces the creativity for everybody.
Word.
Now's the time. You gotta figure it out. You gotta force yourself to find different ways to stay productive because we limited the shit that we could do out here. But yeah, Go, I'm glad to have you on my shit. You know what I mean?
My brother.
I've been doing this independent thinking, and me and you, we always have long in-depth conversations, and you're very for a lot of people that's trying to get into this, aspiring artists, aspiring A&Rs, executives, engineers,
yes, sir.
And so have you. You know what I mean? Like, you got a lot of insight. So I'm glad you could be here with us tonight because I got a lot of people that said they was tuning in, and I got some good engineering questions. So I'm glad I got the guru.
My brother.
No double entendre on that one to fucking
yes,
this
sir.
and do the shit right. So you're upcoming, like you went to Howard, right?
Yeah, I went there in '92. I was there before Puff started Bad Boy, all that. I was there when Puff was at Uptown, when he started doing his thing and how that affected, you know what I mean, everybody that was on campus. But even more than that, like that was like the training ground. You know what I'm saying? I went to Howard in '92, and that it really opened my eyes up. Like I had done parties. I was DJing or whatever, right? I'm from Delaware, so I was DJing parties in in Philly, DC, Delaware, whatever. When I went to Howard, it made me have to realize like how to play music for people from all 50 states and from London and from Jamaica and from, you know what I mean? Like, so that opened up my eyes. It was like a lot of people that was just doing it. You know what I mean? Like whatever they did, how would people get to it? We get to that thing and it's a community. So it's a family. We started, like everything we did together. My crew was Tracy Lee. That was who I was rolling with. That's who I was making music with. That's who I was eating oodles and noodles with. That's who I was, throwing parties and taking the money off of that and going in the studio with. Like, we was all a crew and just trying to get on. You know what I mean? That same thing everybody else was trying to do. You know what I mean? But it was like, we seen it. It was tangible because of what, like, Puff did and what Derek did and what the Hitmen did and, all those people. So that's really what the training of how it was. And then having to make that ill decision in '96, I was like, do I stay and get a degree? You got to remember, like, '95 when it kicked off. Now people I know is millionaires. Now people I know is running Billboard. Don't just got one single, but is running the Billboard. Every week was a Bad Boy record, right? So '96, I had the chance to hook up with Nonchalant. She had that 5 o'clock in the morning song. So I had to like make this decision, like, do I leave school and go on tour? And not only just her tour, that we was the opening act on a Fuji tour. For the Ready or Not European tour. So it's like, do I stay?
Bro?
Yeah. That was the first thing we did. Like, it was crazy. So that thing of like having to make that decision on, do I stay and get this degree, or do I actually go do the thing that I've been training to do? You know what I mean? I had to make that decision and sort of believe in myself. But I made that decision to leave, and you know, that was 96. I ain't had a regular job since. You know what I mean? So, yeah. That was the upbringing, yo.
How did you get into engineering?
Back in, it might be harder for some of the younger people to understand, but back in the like 86, 87, 88 time, when you young and you trying to do this, most of the engineers was rock engineers or people transferring out of that into hip hop, and they was moving too slow. You know, for me, that was serious money. Like I found a studio that was like $50 an hour, and I was pissed because dude was taking forever to put the sample in the sampler. And I was just like, all right, I got to move him out the way. I got to know what I'm doing in here to be able to construct records. You know, it came from obviously me DJing first, but then being in the studio, spending what I thought was a bunch of money. Back then, you know, you got a paper. I'm 12. You know what I mean? You got a paper route. I started a lifeguard, and I was a locker attendant. Like I always kept a gig. You know what I mean? Some sort of like legal gig. I always kept one of those. But then I'm spending my money, and dude ain't doing what I need him to do. So I'm just like, yo, I got to move him out the way. And that and me listening to different hip hop records and wanting to make them better, right? They was like super dirty at that point, which we loved, but it was still us trying to expand the music and make the music bigger. That sort of thing is what got me into engineering. Plus, I'm an engineer by heart, not just music engineering, all types of engineering. I was the little kid that took apart bikes and took apart VCRs and tried to fix stuff, and just was like, I was that guy that I loved systems. I knew I was going to be an engineer, right? And then my mother being in the hood, my mother was a teacher. So she had access to all the programs, right? So she would put me in stuff. I was in FAME, this thing called Forum for the Advancement of Minorities in Engineering, right? Changed my life, showed me all the different parts of engineering, what you could do. My mother was just real good with that, yo. Like, she was a special ed teacher in a public school. So all the resources of the community, she was like, nah, go down here and get these music lessons for free down the community center. Go down here and do, you know what I mean? Her trying to just keep me off the street and keep me busy was really what it was. That was the whole thing of why my mother did that and put me in these positions. And I was the kid that listened, and I wasn't like scared to be me ever. You know what I'm saying? So I was on the corner, yeah, you know, drinking my 40s, smoking, but I always had a book in my hand. And I made it real cool for me to read all the time, to learn shit. This is when I'm building with the gods all the time. So, you know, the gods had us in a different mindset of knowledge is important. Like, you stunted on people with what you knew. You know what I mean? Building with the gods. And it wasn't no suckers. You know what I'm saying? Anybody that ran into the gods in the 80s knew they wasn't no suckers. So it was just like that thing of having pride of running around and knowing information. That's what I grew up in. And I'm a real lucky situation because I had a lot of grown men in my life. Like, real grown men, OGs. Like, from my father, number one, that's the home. But even when I stepped outside in my neighborhood, my OGs was the type of drug dealers that was just like, yo, get out of here. Get away from here. Don't do this. Don't come this way. If certain things happen, they would move us out the way. That's the real OGs, not the ones like now that be trying to get the 16-year-old kid caught up, right? Like, right. I had real deal OGs that was like, you could do something. Like, it's that Andre line where he like, yo, you special. Show them that be more than, you know what I mean? More than just this and that. Like, that's what my OGs was. I had them real like 1980s OGs, the quiet ones, the ones that ain't no flash, don't want you to know what they doing. Like, those is my OGs.
Right. So, you know, I know it's different from now back then. Like, explain to the people what it was like mixing a record back then, because there wasn't no Pro Tools or Logic back then.
The biggest thing was tape. You had to buy tape. The tape was $150 for one reel. You got 15 minutes on the tape, right? 24 tracks on a tape. That's it. So for you to even start the session, you got to put out that $150 for the reel, right? There was no Pro Tools in terms of like, let me just put this in here for 8 bars and loop this down or fly this hook this way, or all of that was done manually. You know what I mean? And you had to like actually book studio time. So it's no way you could just wake up and be like, let me just spit my verse in the crib. You had to actually be like, all right, I'm gonna call a studio. This is gonna cost $2,000 for the day to book Hit Factory. You know, like, that was the process. And when you went in there, you got everything done, and then you went home. You know what I mean? Records was done that day. Or if I did a mix, like everybody was at the mix. It wasn't like it is now where people just email me. I do the mix. I email it back to them. They give me notes. I fix it, you know, email it back to them, back and forth. Like everybody was in the room because it cost $2,000 to be in there for the day. So the A&R was in there. The artist was in there. The mixer was in there. Like everybody that got something to do with the record was in the studio that day. You know what I mean? That's the biggest thing, was you had to be in a studio. Home studios was like, get your ideas out, 4 tracks. You know what I mean? Like we was doing Tascam 4 tracks on cassettes in like the late 80s and get the idea together, then go in the studio and do what you do. Also, the studio back then, because it was so expensive, wasn't the place that you created a record. And that may sound crazy to the people in there, but
go in there to put the record together, like mix it?
No, it's the place where you recorded the record. You made the record at home. You came up and be like, yo, I'm going to use these drums. I'm going to use this sample. You probably messed with it a little bit at home. You did all that. By the time you got to the studio, as my MC, you're not coming in there with no rhymes. You got to come in there with, I got to have heard the rhymes. We going over the record before when we step in there, we knocking out the recording of 4 or 5 records in one day. Like, because you already wrote all of them at home. It was no time to just sit in there and just, I'm going to come up with something. Like, now we're not even booking the studio time until we got a record to go record.
Right.
We're not wasting thousands of dollars like that. You know, that was one aspect of it for me. But also, like, the record companies did used to waste a lot of money. You know what I'm saying? In the late 80s, early 90s, where it was just like, that was the culture. Like, you book a studio, and I might be sitting there for days and days and days on end. Just doing whatever, you know what I mean? But that sort of thing was, everything had to be done in the studio. You couldn't make no changes. If I did a mix and I sent it in the Def Jam and then somebody was like, yo, can you make the snare a little louder? That means spending another $1,000 and me going in there and doing what we call recall and bringing it up, bring the snare up, you know what I mean? All of that had to be done. That was the old school way. So it's like, I'm super appreciative, and I never forget like that way of working. So I know how ill it is now for everybody to have the power to just record in their crib. Like, I never get over that. That's a super powerful thing. Like, I could sit on my couch and just do edits and do changes and all this other stuff, man. We never was able to do that. We had to do everything on tape.
That's crazy. So, like, you know, now when you hear certain records or certain artists, do you judge a record by a mix?
Sometimes I do. Sometimes it's hard for me. Like, I may really love the record. Don't get me wrong. The record is primary. It got to be a good record first, right? It got to be a great record. And if the record is good, most of the time I'm going to like it, you know, like regardless of that. But you want to give it the best sound quality. So sometimes I do. It's hard for me. I had to learn this skill because I used to be in the club sometimes and be like, damn, why does mix sound like that? Instead of just enjoying the record. You know what I mean? Like, sometimes it's hard for me to get over that. But I can enjoy a good, like, think about it. I had Illmatic on a cassette tape dubbed down 8 times. You know what I'm saying? When the bootleg came out, it's still Illmatic. I still bumped it. I still listened to it. I still, you know what I mean? But you try to present everything as best as possible. It's like the mix is everything else around. You go for a steak dinner, you want the steak, you want the plate, you want the ambiance, you want the music in the background, you want the light. That's what you're taking, you know what I mean, the chick on a date for. Otherwise, you could have just ate the steak off of a paper plate. You know, it's the same steak. You know what I mean? But the things around it make the experience that much better. That's what the mix is. It's taking a car that ain't polished and ain't clean and putting the final painting on it. And are we going to put white walls on this? We're going to put the strip here. What color we going to do? You know, like, that's what the mix is for. So it make you appreciate the car even more. You know what I mean? You be like, oh, he did that. He put them rims on it. He got this color. He murdered that. Like, same car. You know what I mean? That's how I equate the mix. The mix is that final stage of, let's get the song together to present to the people.
So for independent artists, you think having the right mix engineer is important for them?
Absolutely. Like, that sort of thing will completely help your sound. As much as I admire people that just do the records and put them out, like, taking that serious as a step in it. You know, people will pay for anything. They're going to pay the producer. They're going to pay for studio time. They're going to pay for this. That's another link in the chain. Like, you got to make sure, and it don't got to be super expensive. You know what I'm saying? Especially nowadays, like, you're going to find some people that's out of work that ain't really doing nothing. That's like, yo, let me hear a couple mixes. But, you know, that's how you go about finding an engineer. Listen to the work that they did. Find people in your area that you're good at working with. Work with an engineer that's up and coming. And even though he may not be like top tier of doing the stuff that, you know, on the level of stuff that I do, work with the person and bring them up so y'all come up together. You know what I mean? That's how a lot of the younger engineers got their names, like a Ali, you know what I'm saying, working with Kendrick, right. Or, you know, 40 working with Drake. They started with them, you know what I mean? No pun intended, started from the bottom with them. You know what I mean? Like, that's what they, you know, that thing of finding somebody in your area that can constantly work with you. Also, I see those holes of like independent engineers needing good mixes. So that's the whole thing with what me and Ali is doing with this engineer is. You know what I mean? It's going to be like a spot where you could go and contact all the different people on all different pay levels. You know what I mean? Listen to a couple mixes, get in touch with this person. That dude that's sitting in the middle of New York can now start getting mixes from Africa, from, you know, from London, from, you know what I mean, wherever in the world. And it just opened up the palette. It's something we was thinking about now because it's just like, yo, this thing got us locked in here. How is these people going to get access to these people? And there's so many people back and forth that need each other, building that space and that economy. That's the real thing.
Now, you know, I got an interesting question for you, just because, you know, we think about a bunch of shit. So, you know,
yo, you good at this shit, man. You real good at this shit. This question shit. I've been watching. You good as hell at this shit.
Thank you, bro. You know, I'm a fan too, and I'm a student. So, you know, it's a lot of shit that I want to know for myself. And I know it's a lot of my fans that ask me these questions for, you know, how to get in and, you know, what to do. And this is the best teacher right here. You know what I mean? This is nothing but experience who I'm talking to right here. So it works. So, like, you know, engineers are like, not even alike. Engineers are a big part of creating a record and crafting a record, right?
Right.
Do you think engineers should receive publishing?
It's a sticky situation. You got to negotiate. You get what you negotiate. To answer your question, yeah, I think they should receive publishing. You know what I'm saying? But that's something that traditionally has been with rock engineers, where that was understood with rock engineers, and you would choose that engineer for a certain reason, and they would get a certain point, you know, on the album. I'm blessed enough that I do a lot of work, you know what I mean, for Big Homie and for other people where Son is just such a good person that he already includes that for me. You know what I'm saying? So those sort of things are already included for me. But you got to speak up. You gotta like, if that's something you want, you got to ask for, because it's not a standard in our industry. It's not a lot of hip hop engineers that's getting points. But to answer your question, yeah, I think they should get points. But you got to discuss that like anything else, man. It's like you get what you negotiate, not what you deserve.
Right. Speaking of the Big Homie, how did you link with him? How did that relationship
through Bleak.
About?
That came through Bleak. So it was like, it was me in New York. I had come up, I left DC in '99 to come up here and work on the Mad Rapper album with Derek, right? So Derek, another Howard brother. Yeah. Though, again, that's the thing I was trying to tell you about, how Howard dudes get down. Like, everybody that's OGs pull each other up. Everybody does that. Everybody makes sure everybody else is good. They used to call us the Howard Mafia. They still do. But it's only that you show love to your people. It's just period. Like, that's what it means. So in '99, Derek brought me up to New York to work on the Mad Rapper album. I did that for like a year. We was working out of Jimmy Henchman's studio for like a year, right? So then I went independent as an engineer, and one of the first sessions I got was Bleak. And me and Bleak, just like, that became my brother, like my brother for real. I know people love my brother, but that's really like my brother. Like, I love that dude. You know what I'm saying? Like, one of the few people on the earth, I'll take a bullet for him. I'll step in front of it. Like, that's my guy. And me and him just clicked. So then through me doing a couple sessions with him, Hove stopped by to check on Bleak to make sure, you know what I mean? Hove is an artist, but he was also the head of the label. So he's coming by. This is before Baseline. It's before Baseline even existed. So he would come by and check on Bleak. And then one day he came by and was just like, yo, throw up my reel. And that's the first time me and him worked. That was also the first day I met Just Blaze. Like, so I'm in a Just Blaze session that he's doing something for Bleak, and then Hove stopped by, and then it just happened like that. And then Jay was like, yo, you know, I like the way you work, come through to this spot, boom, boom, boom. And me and Bleak basically started working the last part of we started the Understanding Bouncing Around studios. Then Baseline got built, and then we kind of finished the Understanding at Baseline. And at that time, Jay had a different engineer, right? I was coming to Baseline strictly for Bleak. And then that's when Hop and hip hop and Just was like, yo, Guru know the Pro Tools, he know how to work, you know, all the machines, he know everything. That's when it was like a concerted effort to be like, all right, let's get Guru to just run all of this. You know what I mean? And that's sort of when Jay brought me in and was just like, yo, just do whatever you need. that and the fact that like OG Juan created a facility along with God Bless the Dead Malik Sealy, just for everybody to consolidate.
And that's the facility you're talking about, is Baseline, correct?
Baseline was built right then, yeah. So it was like people around, you know, adding on to things that we needed. And what that did was create like a sort of like space. Like I always say it, the best music, no matter what it is created by small groups of people concentrated in one spot, right? So if you look at like Motown, and if you ever go to Detroit and stand in front of this house, it's a small house. And you think about how much music Motown has created that's going to last the test of time forever and ever and ever. You know what I mean? Small group of people in one place, all the way down to like Stax Records. Even if you go to hip hop, think about it. Death Row is a small group of people concentrated in one place. You know what I'm saying? Murder Inc., small group of people concentrated. You know what I mean? Rough Riders, go down the line, all the way to rock. Our version of that for Rockefeller was Baseline. So that's when everybody came and the work just sped up and we started just kicking everything out. And it's like steel sharp as steel. So if it's a bunch of MCs in there all the time, always writing, there's always beats playing, there's always music playing, everybody gonna get better and better and better. You know what I mean? That's what that did. It made a space for us to be so that artists could, and the fact that it was on 26, you know what I'm saying, between 6 and 7. So it was like you could literally, it's by, for those that don't know New York City, that's right by every club that was popping, you know what I'm saying, at that time in Manhattan. So it was nothing for the artist to leave the club at 3, 4 o'clock in the morning and come to the stew now with energy and all that, you know what I mean? And start recording their records. They've been in the club, they heard stuff. So that was the big thing. It was like having that one spot. Baseline was key to a lot of the stuff that we did.
What was the first full project you worked on in Baseline?
Dynasty. We was working on Dynasty when the walls were still being built. Like they were still building the walls when Jay was working on Dynasty. Yeah. Dynasty is the very first project that came out of there. Before then, it was like Bink was the one doing sessions in the B room, you know what I'm saying, for a couple people early before the spot was even completely finished. You know what I mean? But then the first Rockefeller full-length project was Dynasty.
That's crazy. Outside of Hove, who's your favorite artist to work with as far as mixing music?
Oh, man, that's tough. I love artists for different reasons. Like, of course, I love working with Ninth because that's my brother, right? So that whole conglomerate of what we doing with Jamila and like just watching him be specifically himself, right? Cool. I don't want to. This is exactly what I do. I do this boom bap. We're gonna expand this. We're gonna stay here with this sound, but I'm not, you know, conforming and changing with the times or whatever, right? To watch him go from just doing, you know, doing Little Brother and then doing remix projects and getting his beats out there and doing, you know, Destiny's Child and Mary J. Blige and all that, to creating his own label and then asking me to come on and help with the label. That's one of the biggest things, to see like Rhapsody get to where she at. That's a huge thing. It's just so many people, man. Like the brother Jadena, I just got done doing a Jadena album, and that was just a joy for me because he know exactly what he want. He know exactly how he want everything to sound. It's not a back and forth thing. He give me a session. It say the tempo. It say the key. It say, you know what I mean? Everything is labeled perfectly. You'd be surprised a lot of times I get sessions and it's just like, you got to figure out what's going on. You know what I'm saying? Like nobody's labeled it. It just say audio 1, audio 2. You got to like figure this out of where everything is. Those people that are like super organized and give me as much information so I could do it really fast. Like you'll be surprised, like 60% of the time I'm working on a song, I'm fixing stuff before I even get to mixing.
That's crazy.
I'm fixing, you know what I mean? This person did this wrong or that wrong, or these particular technically is wrong. You know what I mean? You got 2 kick drums together and they kind of phasing with each other. So that's going to make the drums weaker than actually stronger. I'm moving things. I'm paying attention to all the particulars and all the things like that of fixing stuff before I'm actually getting into sonically, how do I want this to sound? You know what I mean? Sort of thing. Those people are the people I enjoy working with. Of course, No ID. Like No ID is like one of the producers that I just really, really enjoy. Like that's my brother. We build on a lot of topics. And going through phases with him. And when I say phases, like No Idea being one phase of production, like when we was doing like Vince Staples stuff, you know what I mean? He was in like sort of this like gritty, everything was going through amps and guitar pedals and all this other stuff. And like, then we got to like say a Janae Aiko album, you know what I'm saying? So then the vibe sort of changes to what we got to do. But No Idea is one of them people that always include me in mixing, and he's just a fun brother to work with, really know what he's doing. He's almost like, we call him Yoda, just because he know everything about like sonically about music. Like No Idea is an incredible producer to work with. So that's some, you know, between that, Common albums and things like that, I've worked on a bunch of people because of like No ID. You know what I mean? But then different reasons. Like people know Just is my brother, so I enjoy working with Just too. Like sometimes me and Just be doing mixes that don't even talk to each other. You know what I'm saying? It's like literally like we in the same room and I'm just doing what I'm doing. I know exactly how he wanted to sound. It's like get it to where I want it to be and then add a little bit extra highs and then Just gonna like it. You know what I'm saying? Like we already know how he think. You know what I mean? So it's just those things. Or sometimes like during that whole baseline run, I was there when he was making the beat. I was there when he was coming up with the concept. I was there questioning certain things. So I already got a feel of not only how Just wanted, but how the project is supposed to be. You know what I mean? We would just make a bunch of music all the time. And then me and Hop would wake up on a Saturday. You know what I'm saying? I go out without even asking them. I go get us 2 coffees, light and sweet from the corner store, go get the backwoods, come back. And then in a 1 hour, you know what I mean, wake up thing, me and Hop is sitting there burning, but discussing like, yo, who's next? Okay, Freeway got 10 songs. Okay, Freeway album next. Let's finish this up. Let's get what we need. Let's line this up. You know what I'm saying? Where Hop is A&R, but Hop is one of those A&Rs that A&Rs from the studio, not from an office.
Shout out
in there with you.
That's my nigga right there.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's like the things that are enjoyable to me. It was just like that whole process of that. And then also understanding we took care of the creation of the music. Meaning, once we got done, I trust that once I hand this over to the office, that Lenny and G and everybody that was the office people, you know what I'm saying, was going to do what they do with the record. It's been plenty of times where I hand records in and they be so excited, like, yo, watch what I do with this. You know what I mean? So that trifecta of the office people, you know what I mean, the people that like to go out and kiss the babies and be around town and talk and go to all the parties and all that, and then us that was in the studio, I think that was the perfect trifecta, because I'm not the dude that want to just be on the scene for no reason. If you see me out, I'm associated with whatever's in there, right? I'm not just in there, or if I'm in there studying, like, what do people like at this given time? But it's not, I'm not trying to, like, I'm old, you know what I'm saying? If I'm going out, I'm going to Mobile Mondays to be like, let me listen to these 45s and let me listen to this. You know what I mean? I'm at Toka Tuesdays. I'm with Quest on Wednesday and Brooklyn Bowl. The things I'm selecting is people my age group. That every once in a while, I got to go, all right, what's happening at a 25-year-old club? Let me just go in here real quick and see what they on. Or my DJs is telling me all throughout Brooklyn, like, yo, go, you got to listen to this Bobby Shmurda record. It's only blowing up right here in Brooklyn, but I guarantee you in 2 weeks, this is going to be big across the whole New York area. Then after that, yo, it's going to be big across the country. So I have those people that constantly keep me in tune. That's what I'm mostly doing. You know what I'm saying? So that I don't get old. And so that I am old, but I'm saying so that I don't get out of tune and out of step with what's going on. We stay with us, but we always updating with the time so that we not just, you know what I mean, sounding like it's 1992. I already did 1992. Like, I want to do 2021 and 2022.
So, you know, you just stated a good point. It's important for artists and A&Rs and such to go out and be in these places to hear how a lot of this shit runs. Correct?
Yeah, absolutely. Or sometimes you got to really question, and this is the part where I be coming in to squash all the BS, where, like, you can have an A&R that's been in this thing for like 20 years, and the thing that they got their job for was 20 years ago. So it's just like, what do you do now? What's your value now? Like, what are you bringing to the thing now? Do you understand where we at? Do you understand streaming? Do you understand the time period of artists being bigger than just their songs, and they got to do something outside of just make the music to attract the people? Like, you know, sometimes people don't, they still, and it wasn't out of spite. It wasn't out of like people telling you something because they want you to lose. It's just the way that they used to doing it. You see what I'm saying? Like, so there was a point in time where in Def Jam, the higher ups was telling people, like, don't give so much of yourself to the people. When the internet first came out and people was talking and putting up YouTubes and all, they like, yo, because to them in their mind, they like, yo, you taking away your mystique. We came up with the rappers that had mystique. Rakim had a mystique. Nas had a mystique. Jay had a mystique. You couldn't just talk to these people and get an answer. You didn't see them all over the place. So that's the mind frame of the people that was over the projects when they was coming up. So when new artists come out and they started giving all of themselves to the public, the higher ups was like, yo, what is you doing? They're not going to buy the record if they see you every day. Not knowing, nah, nigga, it's necessary for you to give yourself every day now so that they can get into you and buy the records. So I'm just putting it, saying that's the change that you got to see, because you could be listening to somebody who means you well, but they working off 25-year-old rules. That's it. You know what I mean? Like, that's the point. You got to know who you're talking to, and don't ever be afraid to ask somebody what they do. Like, what do you actually do? Because there's people out here riding off of names.
That's a fact. You fucked me up. I had another question for you right away, and you fucked me up with that one. That's a lot of niggas out here riding off names from yesterday. So
yeah,
you know
absolutely.
So yo, I heard stories about Kanye going crazy over his mixes, right? Just are a lot of artists like that? Do a lot of artists care about their mixes like that? Is that a thing?
It depends. It depends on who the artist is. All artists to me care about the mix. I don't know if they get as particular. You know what I mean? So some artists get super particular. Some artists are just like worried about their vocals. Some artists is worried about everything. So it's from artist to artist. You know what I mean? My thing is, I try to give the artist what I think their version of what they want, but I also try to put my twist in it. I say it to people like this so the hood can understand it. You choose your barber for a certain reason. You walk in the shop and you go, who's the nicest person in here? And you choose him because he has a really good skill. But when you sit down, the first thing he goes, okay, you want to taper back, you want to round back, you want to square back, how you want this side done? Do you want the thin line? Do you want the thick beard? He's asking you questions so that he know how to cut your hair. Then he takes his skill and try to do exactly what you asked him to do. He's constantly turning the chair around. Is that what you was talking about in the back, showing you the mirror? That's all I'm doing with mixing, is I ask you what you want, and then I throw my expertise into it. And then as I'm doing it, I go, yo, don't stick your finger in the batter until I tell you it's ready. But I might call you into the kitchen and be like, yo, you think that's too much salt in that? Did I put enough salt in that? Well, in the batter stage, you know what I'm saying? Where I'm like, yo, did I put enough in there? And then I'm gonna call, and then I'll be like, yo, all right, leave me alone. Let me cook it, and then come back and then taste it and tell me how you feel. And do I need to change the recipe after that? That's how I sort of take it. You know what I'm saying? Because at the end of the day, I'm working for you. You're my boss. You're really my, people don't like that word, but you're my client at that particular time. The same way for your barber, you could walk in there and be like, yo, I want lines all through my beard. And he's going to be like, yo, that ain't going to really look good, DZA. And you're going to be like, so what? I want that. Like, all right, cool. You paying me.
What do you want?
My expertise is to go, I don't think that's going to look good, brother. You know what I'm saying? And then if you don't listen to that, then it is what it is. But at least I know I told you I don't think that's going to look good.
Right. Now, you know, to double back on a question you had about, well, a question I had about the internet, because you said, you know, before the labels didn't want artists to really be out there because it would ruin their mystique, sort of, kind of. Do you think today's artists, do you think the internet ruins their mystique? Nah,
it don't, because you could do it any way you want to do it, right? You can be a Kendrick and just be like, I don't fuck with it. You see what I'm saying? I'm going to get them this music, and then I'll fall back. You could do that all you want, but I would much rather have this power of doing whatever I want to do and present it the way I want to present it than what we had to go through before with basically sucking dick, pause. You know what I'm saying? No other way to say it. It's just like,
no other way to no shit.
Yo, it's just like you had to beg somebody. You know what I'm saying? You had to beg somebody to get on. You had to go and be like, yo, I'm going to make all this music. I'm going to get an MC. The MC is going to say the rhyme. I'm going to do all this stuff to get noticed. And I'm basically walking and begging an A&R to pay attention to me. I'm begging to become a slave. I'm like literally begging to say, yo, take 70% of my money, because I don't own no planes and no boats to be able to mass produce this thing and put it in the stores all on the same day at the same time. I didn't have that power before. Now, through the click of a button, I got a power to make it go worldwide. I would much rather have that thing and have to fight like, okay, get the thing above the noise, versus me having to bow down to a record label, have to wait for y'all schedules, me having to move schedules around because somebody bigger than somebody else, you know what I'm saying, is coming out and wants to use that day, and I can't do this and I can't do that. Or waiting for the meeting about the meeting, not being able to react in real time to things that's going on. That's all the power that we got today. You know what I'm saying? So I'd much rather have it this way. The only difference is now you got so many people that shouldn't be doing it that you got to get above the noise. That's my biggest thing. So it's just like, if I know, we already know DZA can rhyme. We already know he's good. We already know his audience. So it's like, yo, how do we get him above the noise? It's the consistency of what you've done and the product that you put out for years and how you stay and remain yourself. So I would much rather you as an artist have that power versus like you having to wait for a schedule and get a budget and worried about did I, you know, recoup on my budget before they're gonna open up another budget for me. And this, you know what I mean? The record company is strictly about making money. So it's like a lot of the moves they made wasn't necessarily for your detriment, but it always wasn't in your best interest because they got to look at it as a whole. They got to look at the whole thing. So to answer your question directly, this is a much better time, man. We got way more power. You could put stuff out. You can like garner your audience from your living room and then go outside. That's the part of it I think this generation is missing, is the go outside part. So it's just like you do a lot to be on, but then you also missing that thing of like personal human interaction of when the artists used to go do the mom and pop stores and like meet people in every city. That's why, you know, rappers from the 90s, they can hit any city and they know people because they've been going to the mom and pops forever. That's the part that we missed. The
camaraderie.
We got access to a lot of things, but I don't think people got that person to person, you know, embracement until they get out on that road and they doing them shows and people now know who you are and they feel your vibe. I think that's the part, along with the internet part, that people miss. They think I just did my job. I posted my stuff. I'm posting all the time. I'm staying consistent. But what you doing to get outside? How many people in your area know you? How many people in your area have touched you? How many shows have you rocked in your area so that when somebody from out of town come in and they say, yo, who's popping in this area? Everybody say your name. That's the part I think people need to add on to what the internet, you know what I'm saying, is doing.
Right. Now, you know, before I even get into that question, a lot of engineers are producers as well, right?
Yeah, hell yeah.
Is that strategy hand in hand? Do you make beats? Is there ever a time you put your hand in production?
Absolutely. I think everybody does that. Just the production aspect of it. So, you know what I mean? Like for me, making the beats is just one thing that's like part of the whole thing. Like making beats and engineering go hand in hand.
Right.
Give me 1 second. Give me 1 second, bro. I got a break real quick. I'm gonna come right back on. Give me 1 second.
All right, bet.
Yes, sir. There we go.
See, yeah, that's
cool.
I had to save that shit. It was too good.
It's all good, brother. My fault. Yeah. I still got some more time.
All right, cool. So I had the privilege to go into the B-side show.
Yes, sir. Which one? The first one or the second one?
The first one.
Right.
And you know, it was a bunch of rappers in the crowd, which was the illest part for me because we was all students that day. And I know you played a big part in putting together that show. What was that experience like? And what was that energy like?
Yo, it's one of the funnest shows we ever did, man. Like for real, I can't tell you how fun it is to do the B-sides. Number one, because it's like Hov got so many classics that people will be upset if they come to the show. It's hard enough for us to put together a show, right? Because normally we touring with a new album that we just put out, so we gotta have some material from the new album. Then we gotta have the classic big songs. Then, you know, his range of fans. Some people want All Reasonable Doubt music. Some people ain't come on until, you know what I'm saying, Hard Knock Life. Some people ain't come on until Blueprint. Some people ain't come on until, you know what I mean, American Gangster. So it's just like, you're trying to service all these people, and it's sometimes songs that won't hit really big in the big arenas. You know what I'm saying? We do, you know, 25,000 is probably the smallest that we normally do when we doing like, say, Barclays or something like that. When we go overseas, we doing soccer stadiums. You know what I'm saying? That's 70,000, 80,000 people. So you got to think about what's going to hit in those specific things. Saying all that to say, B-sides is just ill because we get to do all the hard cuts, all the songs that everybody love, but ain't, you know, they don't always get to hear them. So putting that together is just one of the best things. But I will say this, like, the live show is so much fun because it's like, it's me, it's Omar as our musical director, to where you got a young brother that like understand hip hop and how to put music together, but also understands musical knowledge and how to conduct men. So meaning like, it's a lot of personalities. It's a lot of just like holding things together. But as a musical director, he's incredible. He do Rihanna, you know, a whole bunch of people, right? Because he has that musical knowledge of somebody that rides that line of like, you could get somebody that could write, you know, charts or whatever, but they ain't gonna understand hip hop. And you can get the guy to understand hip hop that can't do this part. He's perfectly, that's why he's such a great musical director. Then we have 1500, you know what I'm saying? Which is like, they just broke, like their breakout, like, so I don't want to say year, but just like past 5 years of what they've been doing of, you know, finally getting Nipsey, you know, rest in peace, to that level with the big album and the LMA joints and just all the things that they've been doing as a conglomerate. They, you know, are on tour with Jay-Z, with T.I., with Snoop, with, you know, whoever. Like, that thing of having niggas there is like the best part of it, where it's like they understand the music. That's a great part. And then you got to give credit to Hove in the way he like sequences things. Like, his sequencing game is just immaculate. When you hear this song go into this song and this song go into this song, we doing the breakdowns as musicians, but it's his thought process of how to sequence that. You know what I mean? So that's it's just him, and he'll sit there and be like, okay, play this into this. Nah, that ain't working. Play that into that. That ain't working. Okay, play this. Yeah, that's it. And then we're going, you know, his sequence game is just tremendous. That part of it. And this may sound weird because I know artists want to be like, I want to rock the biggest stages, right? When you be on them joints, that's like 70, 80,000, it's hard to get energy from the crowd because you so far away from them. You know what I'm saying? Like, you so far away from that barrier. When it's small like that and you can see people's faces and the energy, you get so much more energy from the crowd in a small joint, and we just don't get to play, you know what I mean? Places like Webster Hall or when we was on 10th Avenue, I forget what the first one was at.
Ballroom.
Yeah, we was in the ballroom. So it was just like, that sort of energy right there is hard for us to get, you know what I mean, being so far when we doing 70, 80,000. That's what made the B-side so special. And it was, like you said, it was so many MCs in there that I respect and love. And they, you know, just to be able to perform in front of them, because I'm always giving it up to the MCs that I love. Like, people don't know, I call you and just be like, yo, I'm stuck on this album, and I'm stuck on this particular song, and I'm stuck on it because you be murdering shit. So it's just like, it's hard for me to listen to anything else. Like, when you and Benny put the album out, that last one y'all did together, I'm just like stuck on that shit forever. Like, y'all was killing shit, man. Like, and yeah, those sort of things, you know what I mean, is what I love, to be in a room with MCs that I respect.
Right. That's hard. You know, speaking of MCs, respected MCs, you know, the sequel, we seen Jay bring up and bring up Nas. You know, and we all quarantined right now. We looking at the Jordan doc and all that coming on. I know you got a good line with my man. You need to tell him put them joints on Tidal, because we need to see the video. Because if it wasn't there, you ain't see it. You feel me? And we want to see it. For one, you know, I'm a stand. I'll text you a whole bunch of crazy. Like, I wanna see it. I know everybody in there want to see it too. So we need B-sides on Tidal. Hopefully, I can send that.
I'll tell you what. I promise you I'll relay the message. I promise you I'll relay the message. Yeah. Word up.
Perfect. That's perfect. That's all I needed. I know. Before I let you go, what's one piece of advice you can give to a up-and-coming artist, a up-and-coming engineer, up-and-coming A&R that's trying to navigate through our culture right now?
Man, there's so much advice. I need to do more of that. Just giving away like the gems or whatever. But the number one thing right now is to study and get good at what you're doing, right? That's the basis of it. Before you even come in, study and get good at it. Because what you don't want to happen is like you not really at your peak, or you're not really like all the way there with your craft, and then you're going to have to start doing things in terms of negotiating deals that ain't really worth what they should be worth. If you add some value to yourself first, then when you come into the negotiating table, you're going to be worth so much more. And it's not just about like signing a record deal or whatever. There's so many, you know what I mean, things outside of just signing a record deal that can make you money at this point, but it's all about your value and what you bring to the table. So that's the first thing, is like, don't be so hungry that you undervalue yourself. But that comes from you studying your craft and being on your craft. I still study every day. New plugins come out every day. You know what I'm saying? And I got to constantly keep up and constantly study and figure out what they do, else I'm going to get lost. That's the number one thing. The number two thing is don't step over a dollar for a dime. Don't do that. Like, my pop used to say that all the time. Do not step over a dollar for a dime. Meaning, don't go for the quick, short money. Like, I understand brothers got bills to pay and sisters got bills to pay. This is your dream. You're trying to get out there, but don't shortchange yourself, right? I was 22 years old having my first child and had to navigate in this industry where I got to a point like, okay, I got a kid now. I can never be broke again. I can't be the college student, you know what I mean? Like, with no money. Like, I had to get to a certain point. but I still made deals and made decisions based off of what was best for me in the long run, right? I'm never selling my publishing. I'm never letting it retain as much of your publishing as possible, retain as much control as possible. And the biggest thing that no one ever tells you is there are no rules. There's only common practices. So you can negotiate whatever you will. Don't come in there when I come into a meeting. Don't tell me, well, so-and-so did it for this. That's not a rule. This ain't a law. You understand what I'm saying? Contracts are negotiated. What is in there is what you negotiate. So there is no rules. There's only common practices. And you can determine whether or not you're going to do that or not. Don't let somebody just tell you, well, this is the way we've always done it. Well, so what? I want to do it this way. Ain't no rules say I can't do it that way. That's the thing where people get you and be like, oh, well, we've always done it this way. You can ask these questions of why. And if a person can't answer that question of why, then they don't really know. So come in and do it the way that you want to do it, right? Am I saying like you're not going to have to like look at deals and say, look, I don't like 100% of this, right? But at least like 90% of it. I'm willing to deal with the other 10% because I got, you know what I'm saying? You're never going to get a deal that's 100% in your favor, right? Never. Unless you don't need a deal, unless you become your own boss and put things out. And even still, then you're going to have clientele as a boss where you're going to have to do deals, right? So you're always going to be thinking like that. But for me, it's just like, remember that, you know, I try to say it in an axiom so you can always remember this, like, there's no rules, it's only common practices.
Boy, oh boy. If niggas don't take them gems and make necklaces, I don't know what you know what I mean? You get what you negotiate. Yo, Goo, I love you. Thank you for stepping on class.
Keep doing what you're doing, man. We gotta do this more often too, man. When I got more time, like we gotta really do this more often, man. Because
nah, for sure.
Legendary.
You know, I love to pick your brain with a lot of this shit. At the same time, I'm learning too. You know what I mean?
My brother.
A lot of these are from, you know, from how I feel and what I want to know. So I appreciate you, brother.
Absolutely.
My dog. In a minute.
I see you at the food spot in Brooklyn.
Yeah.
My brother. Yes, sir.
Salute, big bro.
Salute.
Yeah. Motherfucking young guru. Yeah, man. Take them gems, make chains. Put them joints in your pendants. I'm gonna be back in 2 seconds with ASAP 12. We're gonna keep this independent thing.